Very unhappy that he didn't repeal and replace Obamacare. As you know, he campaigned on repealing and replacing Obamacare for years. And then he got to a vote and he said thumbs down. I think that's disgraceful. Plus, there are other things. I was never a fan of John McCain, and I never will be.
All right, the former Ted Cruz campaign pollster Chris Wilson, former Obama regional field director Robin Byro. Now, I don't know what to say on this, Robin, because you can argue on politics or whatever, but that's just tacky. It's just tacky and it's wrong. He's criticizing a guy who's dead. He was a war hero. He was a genuinely good and decent man. The president's alive. John McCain is not. He's speaking ill of the dead. Let bygones be bygones. I know they didn't get along in life. I don't expect them to be phony afterwards in death. But come on.
I couldn't agree anymore, Neil. And I'll point out that a Trump aide just recently posted to her Instagram account a contrast showing John McCain's war medals and then the seal of the President of the United States with Donald Trump's name on it. Very tacky, uncalled for. The president has a lot to boast about right now. The economy's doing well. Yes, the jobs report was down last month, and manufacturing jobs specifically were down to 4,000, which is we've been seeing 22,000 averaged out for the last 12 months. So we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown, but still, 1 month isn't a good optic of how things are going to project out for the following year.
No, I agree with you there. I would quibble with you whether that represents a slowdown. But, Chris, one of the things that I see here is that the president is stepping on his own good economic and market message. And I think he'd be up a lot more in the polls and against any of these Democratic candidates, given the economy's strength and the optimism that's fairly apparent on the part of Americans when 7 out of 10 say they like the economy as it is now. Now, a little bit more than 5 out of 10 credit the president for that, but it'd be still higher if he didn't do stuff like this.
Well, and as Deirdre pointed out, those numbers are the highest they've been in 18 years. If you look at the political science fundamentals models, really presidential re-elections are determined on 3 things: incumbency, whether at war or at peace, and the third one being the economy. And the one that you don't hear me mention of that is the approval rating. It certainly factors into it, but I think Democrats have talked themselves into believing that's all there is to it. And as we move into there being a Democrat nominee, I think you're going to find the economy really be the dominant issue.
But do you worry?
Here.
It should be, and you're quite right, Chris, and usually is. Do you worry that the president, though, taking one of his strongest hands here, could be jeopardizing it with saying stuff like this?
You know, I think as we get closer to the election and as the Democrats choose a nominee, you're going to see Donald Trump make the election more about the economy. You're going to see him make the election more about his opponent, whomever that may be. And you're seeing make it more about the choice between capitalism and socialism. And Democrats are really kind of walking right into that trap, if you will. So I think what we're talking about in March of 2019 probably has very little to do with how people decide their vote in October of 2020.
Well, I don't know, Robin, what I see. And I'm not disparaging. I'm just saying it is a very big concern that because it's not just March of 19, I could say April of 18, I could say October of 17. I mean, the president has a long history of saying this kind of stuff, stomping on a message that otherwise might be favorable. I know it's in the eye of the beholder, but this kind of stuff, starting to focus on a network and its various news anchors, who he likes and who he doesn't like, and going after individuals and shows and whether SNL should be regulated. This is crazy.
It is, Neil. The president's always been his own worst enemy, and he's done a lot of good to his credit. But these things take away from it. Getting angry about a rerun of all things from Saturday Night Live, where in this world do we have place for that? Yes, the economy is doing well. I personally am a little bit concerned. There was a report out from Goldman Sachs indicating a possible slowdown. The Federal Reserve is showing only 0.5% growth in GDP over the next quarter is what their projection is. But still, I think, I never bet against USA. I think things are doing well. And he would do wise to just step back and acknowledge the good that's done. He mentioned in a tweet about job growth for women is doing really well now, particularly, Neil.
No, well, all compelling areas. Chris, I did want to get your take while I have you here. You're on Beto O'Rourke, or you helped Ted Cruz in that election. He won. You'd think it was so razor thin that he barely won, but he won comfortably. But now, of course, Beto's off to the races of making a presidential run. Do you think Republicans should worry about him, that given the money he's raising and maybe the experiences you had, that he's someone to watch?
Well, he certainly is, Neil, and I think that's, look, I will never underestimate Beto O'Rourke. He ran a solid campaign for Senate, but as you said, Ted Cruz did win handily, and by the end of the election, I would point out, everyone's talking about, oh, O'Rourke ended up so popular. No, he was nowhere close in terms of popularity to Senator Cruz. That's why Senator Cruz won. Having said that, O'Rourke raised a lot more money than anyone had ever running for the Senate, running for the Senate in Texas. He put together a solid campaign organization, but the one thing he didn't have in 2018 that he's already facing is mainstream media scrutiny. And in fact, what we're learning is some organizations even cut deals to keep negative information they found about him private until after the election, which I just find unbelievable. I mean, if that happened, if Fox News was doing something like that, it would be front page news for weeks. But having said that, he's now going to be dealing with Democrat opponents. He's going to be dealing with a media scrutiny that he's never faced before. And because of it, I think it's going to be a different candidacy coming out of the next few weeks than we saw in 2018 against Ted Cruz.
Well said. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both, and I appreciate you both taking the time.